Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Love is Blind Season 8, episodes 1 through 6. 6 episodes in the pods. I could not believe it. I was originally going to do episodes 1 through 3, and then I realized that the first 6 are all in the pods and barely anything happens, and I was like, honestly, we need to just lump this all together. I don't know what happened this season. I don't know if it was a casting issue, because I've heard about Minneapolis that it's like a very diverse city filled with really cool people. So I'm a little shocked that this is the group that we could get for Love is Blind Season 8. I feel like all of them look the same. It is so hard to tell them apart. Multiple times when I was like taking notes watching the show, I had to like Google what people's names were because I had no idea who was on my screen. It makes me nervous seeing that the first 6 episodes are in the pods and the episodes are really long. Each one was like an hour and 11 minutes, which is too long. I do not believe that any episode of reality television needs to be longer than 45 minutes unless it's like a really explosive season finale. But when I saw that the episodes were so long, I was like, oh, this is gonna be a slog. And honestly, the intro that Vanessa and Nick Lachey give is really short. I feel like we've seen them give the like, is love blind speech so many times that this season they were like, go to the pods, let's just get right into it. So we basically just jump right in. The first guy we see is Daniel, I think, and he immediately talks about how he's 5'8", and like if height matters to a girl, he's probably not for them. I always find it so interesting that short guys always say that when they talk about being short. They're like, yeah, I mean, if height matters, then like, yeah, I'm not gonna be for you, but like it shouldn't matter. Like, why are girls so shallow that they care about height? Meanwhile, I'm sure if Daniel met his person and she was like not physically attractive, he'd be like, yeah, I don't know, I normally go after like a different type. Like, she's just not really what I typically go for. It's like height only, like physical appearance only doesn't matter if it's a guy. When it's a woman, physical appearance actually matters very much. I really like Brittany. She's really beautiful and charismatic, and she's really funny. I thought her first conversation with Devin about like playing and coaching D1 basketball was so cute. Honestly, all the women are really beautiful, and they were all out of the men's league.
Devin, I got some bad news. I think I will dog you.
Oh no, you're a hooper?
I played and coached Division I college basketball.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
What position?
Combo guard. So.
Oh, she's a guard too. Uh-oh. We might have to do a little love and basketball one-on-one and see what's up.
Right? I know.
Joey is so Minnesota. I've never been to Minnesota. I've actually never been to the Midwest save for like a one-day trip to Chicago. But if somebody asked me to conjure a man from Minnesota, it would be him. Out of all the guys, like, I guess he's my favorite. I mean, it's a really low bar. He's certainly not somebody I'd ever date in real life, just like not my type, but like he seems nice and he seems like really funny and sweet, and the girl who he eventually ends up with I think is a good match for him. Then we meet Dave, and Dave goes into all of the pods essentially being like, hey, I'm Dave. What's wrong with you? Why are you here? And it's supposed to be a joke. Like, I understand that it's supposed to be a joke, but it's not landing with any of these women. And you can tell that Dave is like, oh, this joke is funny. Like, these women just don't get it. Like, women aren't funny. They don't get it. He asks one of the women how old she is, and she says 32, and he says, oh, so you're no longer attractive. You know who he really reminds me of is Jesse Solomon from Summer House. Like, in the season premiere of Summer House, how he's like completely negging Lexi and being like, oh, would you describe yourself as ditzy? Did you take the SAT? Did you take the ACT? Even though they don't take the ACT in Canada. He reminds me of that, like making jokes as a way to test her boundaries. I feel like that's what Dave does too. He likes to test boundaries to see like where can he walk right up against that line. Like, he's like Jesse in that way. He does have a really sad backstory. In the next room with the next woman, he reveals that his mom was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer and then lived 10 more years. I mean, which is like incredible, but like, what a really sad story, like just in the end. I feel like he definitely has a little bit of like armor going on there of just like, he's obviously really traumatized by this thing. He talks about it a few more times. So like, that's probably part of why he is the way he is. But then also looking at the other men, I'm like, I also think this is just a toxic group of men. Then we have Meg, who's the goofy one. There's always a goofy one. You know, I've said this before when I was talking about the Real Housewives. I do not like a goofy cast member on a reality TV show where they come on screen and the first thing they say is like, I am so funny. Like, honestly, I'm like the funny one in the group. And then nothing they say ever makes you laugh the entire time that they're on screen. And Meg, I think, really just like puts me off because she says she doesn't smoke but has like high thoughts. I feel like it's such a millennial thing to say. Like, oh, I don't smoke, but like I have such crazy high thoughts. And then she immediately references a Joe Rogan podcast that she listened to. So probably not a person to take seriously. Then Dave meets Molly, and he thinks that Molly's not like the other girls because she's the only one who knew he was joking about having an OnlyFans. He seems to be between her, Sarah, and Lauren. He seems to be in episode 1. By episode 6, you're like, yeah, he is between her, Sarah, and Lauren. It ends up being, I think, really between her and Lauren. I kind of like Dave and Molly. So Dave ends up choosing, is it Lauren or Sarah? I cannot tell these people apart to save my life. Okay, yes, he ends up being between her and Lauren. I actually, for some reason, liked Dave and Molly talking to each other. I don't know why. I think it's because they seem like a very unlikely pairing. But there was something about it where I was just like, I don't know. I'm kind of liking the vibe between these two, even though Dave is just like overall awful. 2 different women, by the way, are talking to guys who have the same name as their dads. No real like commentary on that. I just thought it was kind of funny and worth pointing out. Really, the most interesting story that happens in the pods in all 6 episodes, in my opinion, is the love triangle between Dave, Lauren, and Molly. That's really the only like through line throughout the entire 6 episodes. Molly basically is going back to the women's quarters, the women's living quarters, and talking about Dave very openly. And Lauren is worried that Molly is doing that in a really calculating way to be like, oh, look, like I'm talking to your man, we're having so much fun, like he really, really likes me. But really the truth of it is, Molly just doesn't know that Dave is talking to Lauren. So like, I get her. I feel like I would do that too, where I would be so confident that he was talking to a different girl, and I would just be like talking about everything like out loud, thinking I'm safe, and then the poor other girl that he's talking to is like right there. So yeah, I did not think that Molly was being calculated at all. I think Dave was just keeping his cards close to his chest. I feel like that's what a lot of the people do when they go in the pods. Like some of the women were doing that too. They just don't like to tell everyone who they're all talking to. I will say, even though I liked Dave and Molly in the pods, I do not think that is something that would ever work in real life. I mean, first of all, Molly has never been in a relationship, which is really interesting to me. I feel like I want to dive deeper into that because like she's very beautiful. She seems like a little like alternative, like she's kind of cool, and like she seems very normal. So I think it's really interesting that she's never been in a relationship. I kind of want to know why. But yeah, I don't think Dave and Molly would ever work in real life. He is a really domineering personality, and I think Molly would hate that, and Molly would actually stand up to him, and I don't think Dave would like that. Some guys like who have the domineering personalities, they like when a woman stands up to them and when a woman is kind of able to like put him in his place. I don't think that Dave would like that. I think Dave needs somebody like Lauren, who he eventually ended up proposing to, who is a lot more like softer and sweeter and is gonna be more of a pushover. But Dave is a bad guy, and bad guys tend to target those women. Like really, Dave shouldn't be with any of the women is what I'm saying. He's not, I don't think he's a good guy. This was interesting. So Dave reveals in his last relationship, it ended because he cheated. And then I'm over there thinking like, wow, red flag. Like if I was Molly, I would immediately walk out. I don't know about you. I'm in the camp that like once a cheater, always a cheater. That's something that I believe. I'm pretty sure there are studies. I can't quote you on what the studies are, but I'm pretty sure I've heard that like statistically, yes, like there are certain men who are more predisposed to cheating. For example, like if a guy's dad cheated on his mom, then that guy is more likely to cheat in a future relationship. And I do think that there's another statistic that's like if a guy cheats once, it is more likely likely that he would eventually cheat again. All that to say, if I were Molly, I would walk out. That's like what I'm thinking. But then Molly is like, honestly, I get it. Like, I've never been in a relationship, so I've never cheated, but I have been the other woman in a relationship. Interesting. I listened to a podcast called The Receipts Podcast, and one of the hosts, I'm not sure which one, but whenever like an I'm the other woman scenario comes up, it's like an advice podcast, and whenever a listener writes in and says that, like, I'm the other woman in the relationship, I don't know what to do, one of the hosts is always like, honestly, like, I don't think being the other woman is like as bad a thing as people say it is. Like, you don't know that other woman. It's not like you have any personal connection to her. Like, you're just being selfish, and like you can have your own opinions about being selfish, but like it's not as bad as people think. I don't think I agree with that. I think you're consciously doing something bad. Like, you're consciously like helping this man cheat on his girlfriend or wife, and I think that's a bad thing. Like, I could never picture myself being in that situation. I do think ultimately the fault is with the man, of course. Like, if the woman he's in a relationship with were to find out, she should be more mad at him. But like, it also makes sense that like you're kind of a bad person for knowing that this man is in a committed relationship and like helping him cheat. I don't know. I could never do that. So Joey, I have him in my notes as golden retriever guy because I could not remember his name, but he's just like that classic like golden retriever personality. He proposed to Monica. I think they're really cute. I kind of like them. They seem to have the same personality. They seem really sweet. They didn't really have any strife in the pods. It was the first proposal. I'm pretty sure it happened in like episode 2, super early on. He does say, "Would you get engaged with me?" So he's not perfect. Then we have Madison, who, God bless her spirit, had a horrible childhood, really traumatic. Both of her parents were drug addicts. Her biological mom was a drug addict, I think ever since Madison was really, really young. I don't remember if her biological father was ever in her life. I don't remember if he died or if maybe he just left. But her mom married her stepfather, who was also a drug addict. And what she said was she essentially got to a point, I think she was like a teenager, where she was like, you have to choose between me or drugs, and they chose drugs. So she's talking about how she grew up really religious with a lot of shame around sex. It definitely seems like a common theme among some people in the pods. A lot of these people grew up in like really religious conservative households. She wants to talk about it before marriage, which is good. I feel like we've seen people talk about sex in the pods before. Like, how could you get engaged to somebody without at least talking about it? I mean, you can't have sex in the pods, obviously. Next best thing is to talk about it. And Alex, who she was talking to at the time, completely hits the brakes on that convo. He completely stops it. He seems so uncomfortable. I think he said he's pretty religious at one point, but he does not want to talk about it. And then at one point, this was really weird. I think right after, he said that she's really similar to other women that he's dated in the past, and he can't tell whether he likes her because he likes her or because she's similar to other women he's dated in the past. Kind of a really confusing thing to say to someone. If a guy said that to me, I'm not sure how I would receive that news. I don't think I would take it well. I don't know what it is. There's something about that feels really insulting. I mean, it's basically a guy telling you like, I like you, and I can't tell if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And I don't think I would take it well. And Madison is a little confused by that too, and I think she has a right to be. It's kind of a weird thing to say to someone. It's like something to internalize for sure. Like, if you have those thoughts about someone, it's a good thing to clock, but I think that's something you keep to yourself in your journal. I don't think you'd say that to them. Monica and Joey meet. They're the first two to meet. They're sweet. They seem to have the exact same personality. They're both like goofy, and they're like just like really cute. They seem really excited. I don't know if they're actual serious people who would say yes at the altar. I'm just like not really seeing it. It's like you can't be having too much fun on this show. You know what I mean? Because then I'm like, well, are you actually serious or are you just here for a good time? Right now, I get the vibe that both of them are kind of just here for a good time. I can easily see both of them saying no at the altar and maybe just like dating afterwards and then probably like breaking up 6 months later. Then we have Ben, who is really religious, maybe the most religious out of all of them. And he's talking to Sarah, who seems to be a more left-leaning woman, at least a liberal for sure. She tells him, because he says that he's religious, and she says that she has a gay sister. And something is that, like, that can't be a deal breaker. She has a gay sister, like, and she essentially asks him, like, are you gonna be okay with being around my gay sister? She says that some of the other guys in the pods have removed her from their lists after she said that her sister was gay. So, like, if you want a vibe of the type of men they cast on this show, that's kind of what's happening. And then Ben tries to tell her that that's okay. He tries to tell her that he doesn't have any problems with it, but he is incapable of saying the word gay out loud. He basically just goes, oh yeah, I have some friends who are like that. I have a lot of friends who are in that community. He always only says like that or that community. I never heard him say the word gay the entire time. Really suspicious. Sarah, I don't know if she clocks it or not. If she does, she doesn't say it out loud, but they do eventually get engaged, so clearly it's not a deal breaker. Then Molly is talking to Dave, and she says she doesn't need to agree with her man politically on every single thing, which I guess is like, technically, sure. You don't need to agree on everything politically. Like, if I have different thoughts on, like, water conservation than you, then yeah, I think we can still get married. But if I have different thoughts on, like, civil rights than you, then yeah, that's gonna be a problem. So whenever people say, like, oh, well, you don't need to agree on everything politically to get married, I'm like, be more specific, though. Because politics covers a lot of areas. It's like, are you talking about AI regulation, or are you talking about human rights? I need like a little more specificity there. Dave is definitely a Trumper. I think honestly probably all of these men are Trumpers. Dave is definitely a Trumper. He thinks it's stupid that dating apps have a section for political status. I'm just gonna leave that there. I don't think I need to justify to you why that's a stupid thing to say. I just know for a fact if you found Dave on Hinge in Minneapolis, it would say moderate. I just know. It would either say moderate or it would say not political, and it would be the most right-leaning profile. Like, it would be so obvious. Now, at this point, we're at like the 3-episode mark. That was the end of the 3rd episode, and there's only been one proposal. In past seasons, this has been like when the pods are over. This would be like, that's it, first 3 episodes, we're out of the pods. We're 3 episodes in, and there's only been one proposal, if you want a sense of timing right now. So then episode 4 starts with a doozy. Sarah starts talking about politics and George Floyd, as she should. I mean, she's talking to Ben, who has already kind of insinuated that he grew up in a religious conservative household. Also, keep in mind, George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis, where they are, so this must be very near and dear to, well, it should be very near and dear to all of their hearts, but clearly it's like something that she thinks about a lot. I mean, it happened in her community. Then Ben says that he didn't vote in the last election, and he doesn't have an opinion on Black Lives Matter. Again, keep in mind, the whole movement started in Minneapolis. Like, I couldn't believe that. Then she tells him that he should care, and she doesn't like that he doesn't. But then she immediately is kind of like, no, it's okay. Like, I'm glad you're being honest. Like, we're not talking to a 5th grader here. We're talking to a grown man who I think is in his 30s, who's talking about how he doesn't vote in elections and that he doesn't care about the biggest civil rights movement of our generation. And then Ben asks if she's able to date a guy who doesn't share her political beliefs, and she says, well, not believing in basic human rights is a deal breaker. But clearly it's not, because he proposes to her later on and she says yes. And then Ben goes back to the guys' lounge and he's kind of telling the guys about this conversation, and he says he can't really talk about his values, he just has to show you. I don't know what that means. Like, what do you mean you have to show someone your value? It's like you can't show every single value. Shouldn't it be easier to talk about it than show? I don't know. Then Madison and Mason are talking in the pods and they start making jokes about loving cream pies. The thing with this group is that like whenever these people start talking about sex, it gives like Catholic school kids, you know what I mean? It just gives the vibe of like a bunch of little virgins in the lunchroom talking about like sex, and it's like tee hee hee hee, and it's like, I don't know, it like grosses me out. This is like not a group where like I need to see them being sexy. I don't need to see it. So Devin, the basketball player, developed an illness in high school. He said, he was telling Brittany about this. He essentially woke up one morning, he had a lot of pain in his hips and legs. It only started getting worse. He went to the doctor, and I think they were kind of misdiagnosing him for a bit. They didn't really know what's wrong. So he talks about how he developed an ibuprofen addiction. And it started with like taking 2 a day, then he was taking 5, then 10, and then at one point he was taking 20 a day. I looked this up, and I don't think you can be addicted to ibuprofen. I don't think it's an addictive substance. I'm sure something was happening there. Nobody just takes 20 ibuprofen. I think whatever was happening with him was psychological, because I mean, he says he didn't want to accept that he might never play basketball again. I definitely think there was something psychological with him going on there. A lot of people are like really roasting him for this, being like, how are you addicted to ibuprofen? You can't be addicted to ibuprofen. And it's like, yeah, you definitely can't, but also like there's something wrong there. It's like that doesn't just like happen. I do think that he really had a lot of stuff going on. Lot of talk about God in these pods. I get it, like we're in Minneapolis. It's like a different kind of environment. People grew up a little more conservative, probably a little more religious, but like it feels like every conversation comes back to it, which is not something that happened in previous seasons of this show. This whole show definitely just feels like the season of Love is Blind just feels a lot more conservative than the last ones in a way that's kind of a slog to watch. Like it feels like I'm watching a different show. It feels like I'm watching The Bachelor. Like one of the reasons I stopped watching The Bachelor is because it's just a little conservative for me. It's a little too like trying to be wholesome. It doesn't like to be sexy. Like it's just not my vibe. I prefer something more like Love Island or like, you know, something a little more fun and loose. And like, I don't know why Love is Blind kind of used to be that, and now they're kind of taking themselves back for some reason. I don't like it. So then Brittany tells Devin that she's bisexual. This is the first time she's told him this. She said that it's something she discovered in recent years, but she does not see herself being a woman. She says that she's always pictured herself being married to a man. She was once dating a woman who loved her so much and really wanted to marry her, and she was just kind of like, oh, like that's what you want? Like I just don't really see that with us. So she tells Devin that it's clearly really hard telling him this. I have a feeling she's probably told men this in the past and maybe they didn't receive it well. And Devin did not take it well. Devin did not take it in a way that he didn't take it in a way that I liked at all. He was it was giving internalized homophobia, to be honest. He was like really put off by it. And his reaction was just kind of like, oh, like, I really have to think about this. Like, I've never been in this kind of situation before. Just like not the reaction that I was expecting. I mean, I guess if that's like a new experience for you, if dating a bisexual woman is a new experience for you, sure, I guess you're gonna have some questions. Maybe, I guess you'd have some hesitations if you do, but I did not like the way he took that at all. That like icked me out, seeing the way he reacted to that. These episodes are so bloated. We then have to hear the ibuprofen conversation again, like word for word. Because then Devin goes into the pod with Virginia, the other woman that he's talking to, and he tells her the same story. We literally hear it bar for bar, talking about, yeah, I was taking 10, 20 a day, and then I turned to God, and, you know, then I did this, this, and this, and I got healed. I don't know why they felt the need to show us that twice. It was so weird. I don't don't know what's going on with the editing this season. So then Lauren is in the pod with Dave, and Lauren is kind of telling him like, well, Molly said that you said she was your number one. Like, it seems like you really like her a lot more than you like me. What's going on here? And Dave tells Lauren that he doesn't like that Molly told her that she was his number one choice. And he actually says that he never said that, and he could actually see himself proposing to Lauren. He's playing with them. He wants to keep both of his options. He just doesn't want to be the one to do the breaking up, because then Madison tells Lauren that Molly said that Dave was gonna break it off with her today. Molly was literally in the girls' lounge, like waiting for Dave to break it off with Lauren, thinking like she's gonna get engaged. He's playing with them. This made me so happy. Brittany says that she wishes Devin had a more positive response to her coming out to him, and she breaks up with him. I think that's great. I did not like his response to that at all. I really thought it was giving internalized homophobia, so I'm glad that she knocked it out. She was really nice about it. It wasn't a fight. They were both really respectful. He essentially says like, I was gonna break up with you too, so I'm really glad you did it first. And it's like, okay, was he? I don't know. Then with Sarah and Ben, the last like 2 episodes of the first 6, they're like really rapid firing these proposals. It's like the first 4 were going so slowly, and then in the last 2, it's just like proposal. So Sarah tells Ben that she needs reassurance that he cares about social issues. I cannot imagine having to ask for that from someone. Like, oh, I need reassurance that you care about human rights if this is gonna work. I cannot imagine having to say that to someone. She says that she knows they have the same beliefs about those things, but like clearly they don't. Like, he just told you that he doesn't have an opinion on Black Lives Matter, and like now you think that you and him are the same. And he reassures her like, I can learn, I can grow, I promise. You might just have to be patient with me, which is just so like, you're like in your 30s. Like, I don't know, it's not something that you can teach, which is something that Sarah says, like, and it's not something it's her responsibility to teach, but like clearly this stuff isn't a deal breaker for her like she's saying it is. And I think that comes up in the next few episodes, because it looks like Ben meets her parents and they're like shocked that she is dating somebody so conservative. So I'm looking forward to seeing that play out. But yeah, Ben proposes and she says yes. So looking forward to seeing how that plays out. They are 2 people who I definitely don't think they're gonna make it to the altar. Or if they make it, Sarah's saying no, for sure. Then the situation with Dave, Lauren, and Molly is finally like really heating up. Lauren's kind of hating on Molly because she thinks that Molly's like scheming, telling everybody that like, oh, Dave really likes me, Dave is gonna break up with Lauren, when like really Lauren needs to be working with Molly, because clearly Dave is playing them both. I think at this point Molly still doesn't even know that like that Lauren is the other girl who Dave is talking to. I think she still thinks it's like Sarah or somebody. So then Molly does eventually find out that Lauren is the other woman who Dave is talking to, and she confronts him about this, and he starts crying and saying he's been trying so hard to be the best version of himself in this situation. And Molly asks him just point blank, do you feel your emotional connection with Lauren is stronger? And he says yes. So she's like, okay, then we should break up. And Dave is like shocked that she's so cool with it. Clearly what he was trying to do this whole time is get Molly to break up with him so he doesn't have to do it and look like the bad guy. That's totally what he was trying to do this whole time. And I think maybe part of Dave was hoping that Molly would be a little more upset. I think his ego was hurt a little bit because he was like, I'm kind of shocked you're so cool about this. And Molly's like, well, like, I'm confident in who I am, and like, I want somebody to choose me and like be confident about it. I don't want somebody like picking between me and another girl and acting like it's a really hard choice. I get that. I think it shows self-respect, you know? And then Dave at the end makes it seem like he ended things with her. She's like, oh, like, I wish you would have just like said it point blank, like just ended things. And he's like, isn't that what I just did? And it's like, no, Molly did all of the talking and you just agreed with her. You didn't do anything. You're not the one who made this decision. Like, she broke up with you. And then Molly goes back to the girls' room and breaks down. I mean, she clearly, it's like, you know, she has this tough exterior, but I don't think she wanted to show her emotions in front of Dave like that. She seems like she's the type who doesn't really like to show her emotions in front of people, period. I think that's something she doesn't really like to do. And it makes me happy happy that Molly and Lauren finally talked it out. It makes me happy that like they clarified. Molly was like, listen, I thought the other woman was Sarah this whole time. I really wasn't out to get you. And it seems like Lauren also is just like cool with her. No beef. I love that. I want to see two queens working together to take down an emotionally manipulative man. Then Lauren finally asks Dave just point blank, did you promise Molly that you would end things with me? And he says that's not true. He thinks that he was very clear about like wanting to end things with Molly, but he wasn't. Molly is the one that ended things with him. I just think he is like completely living in his own world. I do think that he genuinely believes in his heart that he broke up with Molly. I think he's just a narcissist. We're on our 5th episode with Daniel and Taylor, and I have no idea who they are at this point. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like their pods have been coming up, and I just haven't been writing anything down because there's nothing really like of note about them, really. I mean, they seem cute. They're very Midwestern. It seems like they really like each other. All we know about Daniel is that he's a short king at this point. And so here's the thing. Sarah and Ben meet, and it's really cute, to be fair. Like, the way that he runs to her is so cute. They seem to have really cute physical chemistry. It's just a relationship that's not gonna work out. Like, I think she's settling for him. I think she's like, honestly, like, this guy likes me, and like, I like him, except for just the one little issue that we don't agree about civil rights. It's like not, she's settling 100%, which is like sad because it's like the way that they meet, it's like so cute. I just wish he wasn't so conservative. Then towards the end of like episode 5 and then all of episode 6, the engagements are just like one after another after another. Then Dave and Lauren get engaged, and it's a really long scene. It's just him proposing to her. She says yes. She's clearly very happy. Madison tells Mason that she just kind of had a gut feeling and was able to get there faster with somebody else. And she thinks that Mason has been telling her and Meg the same things. I feel like she did a complete like 180 on him, and I didn't even notice that it was really happening. I feel like we barely touched on it, but like she basically just feels like Mason has been playing both of them the way that Dave was playing Molly and Lauren, and she's like over him. Like, Mason is clearly really upset, and he's just like, yeah, like, I wish we could have talked about it more. Like, I'm just so confused. Like, this all happened so fast. And then he's like, okay, like, see you later, I guess. And she goes, bye. Mason knows that Meg and Madison have been talking, and I don't know what. I think he's insinuating, like, somebody's making something up, or, like, I don't know how this happened. Like, I really wasn't playing both of them, I swear. But Madison goes in the girls' room and tells Meg, like, I ended it with him. And it's interesting because the vibe I got with Meg in the room was that she was pretending to not know whether or not she would end it with him. Like, she was kind of pretending to be confused. But the vibe I got was that she was happy Madison ended it with him because then it would make it easier for like him to just propose to her and her say yes. Like, I truly thought she was like ready to get engaged to him, but then she ends up breaking up with him. Mason immediately walks into that pod with Meg and says that she's always been his number one, and Meg immediately calls him out, and she was like, no, you were never clear about your feelings for me. And he's like, well, listen, I just had 2 connections with 2 different people. And she breaks up with him. It's real. I truly thought this was going to go the completely other way. I thought she was going to be so happy that Madison ended it with him because then he would propose to her. But no, she breaks up with him and she's like, listen, you didn't do anything wrong, but I just want somebody who chooses me. Very similar to the conversation Molly had with Dave. Daniel proposes to Taylor. Definitely seemed to have the least friction of all of the couples until we get to the end of episode 6. So right now we have Daniel and Taylor, and then Lauren and Dave. And then Devin also proposes to Virginia. All of these happen like back to back to back. Madison is really salty about Mason. Alex is talking to her about the whole situation, and they seem to be talking about it a lot. I feel like they never really show us in the pods like the people talking about their other connections this much and like what was happening in the other conversations in the pods. But Alex is like, yeah, Mason's a good guy. I want the best for him. And Madison's like, that makes one of us. Like, she just like really hates him. him. And she basically just says that he told her that he was committed to her, and then he took it back when she broke up with him because then he went to Meg. And then Alex says that Mason told him that Madison messed up his connection with Meg by talking to her first. He's getting very defensive of Mason. He's just like, listen, you're both valid. Madison starts crying. She doesn't want to talk about it. And then Alex is like, listen, my only hesitation with you is that I think we're gonna have miscommunication and I think we're gonna fight. And Madison, in my opinion, gives a pretty realistic answer. She's like, listen, I can't promise we'll never fight, but I'll do my best. And Alex says that he doesn't think they're at a point to get engaged. So he breaks up with her. It all happened like really fast, the dissolution of that relationship. But like, I think Madison can do better than both of those guys. So then we end episode 6 with Taylor and Daniel meeting. And also, it's like, by the way, he's not that short. 5'8" is like average height for a guy. I understand a lot of women won't date somebody who's shorter than 6 foot, but like Taylor is like probably 5'6". She's barely taller than him in heels. You can like really barely tell. The way they say hello is so Midwestern too. They both walk out and they're like, hello. It's like really, really cute. I did think that was really cute. And then, okay, so they cut to Taylor in like her hotel room or in some Airbnb bedroom. And she says that when she saw Daniel, she instantly had this feeling that she'd seen him before. And she says that at one point she got a follow on Instagram from him. And she knows that it was him because she like remembers a specific picture that he had posted with a drink in front of a Christmas tree. And her Instagram profile is apparently like very specific to her. It's filled with a lot of detail. Like she was talking to Daniel about how much she loves Christmas. And like on her Instagram, she has like a Christmas highlight and like places that she's traveled to. Like there's a lot of identifying information about her in her Instagram profile. And she thinks that when they got to know each other in the pods, Daniel immediately knew who she was. So she thinks that he's known what she looked like the entire time they were in the pods. And then she confronts him in like a diner. I'm a little confused as to where they are. They're like in a diner or like some hotel lobby. And she tells him all of this. She's like, do you have a picture in front of a Christmas tree sitting cross-legged with a drink? Like she really like remembers this picture. And he says he doesn't have that picture. He's like, I have a picture in front of like a fireplace with a drink, I guess, but I don't have that picture. And he's like, I don't follow you on Instagram. And she's like, I think you followed me and then unfollowed me. And he just denies it. And this entire time I'm watching, I'm waiting for production to put up a picture of Dan. I'm waiting for them to put up like the picture of him in front of the Christmas tree, cross-legged with the drink. And they don't do it, which is so interesting. So I'm like, does this picture exist or does it not exist? I loved the way that ended. I was like, this is what I want more of. Just this like stupid mess. So that's it. That's how the 6 episodes conclude. That was like, I was trying to do that in the most rapid fire way that I could. Next episode, we're finally going to Mexico. I can't wait to discover what happens with Taylor and Daniel. I mean, I think she's gonna break up with him 100%, but I'm like dying to know if this picture sitting cross-legged in front of a Christmas tree with a drink exists. She was being so specific about it. I mean, she can like really remember it. I get like that too, where I can just remember these like random bits of information. Like I'll remember like your sibling's name who I've never met, but I won't remember like your eye color. Sometimes memory is just like that. I will say the trailer for the rest of the season looks like things are finally gonna get exciting. I was really optimistic when I saw it. I was really worried this was all just gonna be a bust, but like it seems like people might be second guessing their choices. Dave is definitely like bringing out his gaslighter side, which is gonna be really scary. And even Joey is being accused of like being a great actor and like pretending in his relationship with Monica, and like I guess some of his friends are like, oh, this is so crazy because Joey historically only goes after blondes. I think it's gonna be a really good rest of the season. I think these first 6 episodes we just had to like trudge through, but I think we earned a really great rest of the season. Okay, that's all for this week's Love is Blind recap. I will be back in a couple days. I have to fly to Dallas for the weekend, so I'm gonna be back early next week with a recap of the next 3 episodes that they're dropping tomorrow. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time.